2017 Operations Committee meeting. We're going to be serenaded as, you need me to do something? We're going to be serenaded during this meeting, so enjoy it. Yes.
And since they will be leaving soon, this is Connections Academy that you hear behind us?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Didn't they perform this one night at a board meeting, Queen? They did, yeah. Yeah, they're awesome. So we're going to start the meeting. I'm going to, as part of our sort of ongoing leadership transition in the committees, I want to open the meeting by making a motion, actually I have to ask for a motion. I'd like to ask for a motion that effective tomorrow, December 20th, Michelle Bondima would be the new chair of the Operations Committee. I need a motion.
Yeah, I'll move approval that Michelle be.
Sorry, you're not on mic. Definitely today you got it on mic.
I would move approval that Michelle Bondima be named chair of the Operations Committee.
I second that motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. You get a vote.
Yeah, you've already got a vote. It's like, all right, 4-0, motion passes. So this will be my last meeting as chair, and we're in great hands. She actually knows something about buildings. That will be good. Second item, so congratulations, Michelle. Second item is the budget calendar update. Talking about poor boys at the time our budget update comes, how appropriate.
Hello, good morning.
Morning.
Courtney Desabay, Special Assistant to the Chief Financial Officer. Is that better?
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Yeah, the kids are...
Outside voices.
All right, so this morning we have an update to the budget development calendar. The first slide that you see here is the previous calendar, the one that we presented in October and again in November. Well, September and October. The main dates here are the go-live dates for the tool, which would be item number 5, when Budget Tool opens. That was originally scheduled for January 29th. The budget presentation to the board, which was scheduled for April 10th, and the budget vote by the board, which was scheduled for April 24th. So those items are some of the main items that are being updated, and I'll go through some of the new items and some of the changes in the next couple of slides. All right. The next page here is where we have the updated calendar, and I'll explain the color coding. The items in yellow are some of the additional items, the new items that were not in the calendar previously. And items in blue are some of the key dates that were modified. So I'll begin by saying that the impetus for the change in the calendar was prompted primarily by the FSF model review that's underway. As part of the feedback that we received, we incorporated a fourth community engagement meeting in January. Because of that, we had adjusted the timeline to accommodate that fourth meeting, and also the time to incorporate the changes from the FSF model review into the current FY19 budget development. That being said, the yellow items that you see that were added are the FSF changes being presented to the board on January 9th, the public engagement that we spoke about, 2 of them taking place January 11th and the other on January 16th. Those will be at Poly and at Douglas, just like the other 3 engagements were. We have a guidance review, and this will be incorporating the changes from the FSF model review into the budget guidance for FY19. We anticipate that some of those changes will be not necessarily significant, but will be new for schools, so we want to give them enough time to digest the budget guidance for the budget process this year, as it will be a little bit different from how it has been done previously. Also here we have the community budget engagements added from January 22nd to February 26th. More likely those will take place as much as possible before the budget tool goes live on February 5th. The idea will be to inform the community as much as possible about their role in the budget development process, how they engage with their schools in the SFC meetings, and inform them on budget development in general. So we want that to take place before the tools go live, so they have the opportunity to be informed and participate. The other item added on here is the board vote for the FSF model changes on January 23rd. All right, notable changes. So originally the budget tool was going to open from January 29th to February 26th. That date has been shifted by a week to February 5th to March the 2nd. So this was moved to accommodate additional time for feedback, as I mentioned, for the FSF model review. One of the other updates is school budget approval. So this was changed from January 29th and March 2nd to February 12th and March 16th. We expanded the amount of time for review after the schools submit their budgets so that central offices would have more time to go through the individual budgets submitted by the schools. That was some of the feedback that we received from some of the offices here in central office, that they did not have enough time in the original calendar to go through the budget submitted by schools. So we added an extra week. The board presentation then has been adjusted. So it was originally scheduled for April 10th, and now it's moved to April 24th for that scheduled board meeting in this proposed calendar. So this is to accommodate the changes that we mentioned in terms of the FSF model review, the more time for approvals, and also not reducing the amount of time human capital requires for a reconciliation process. So in turn, that moves the board vote from April 24th to May 8th. We have very little flexibility with that date. It cannot move back any further than that, so it's pretty much set in stone as of right now. We're very mindful of our relationship with the city and the communications that we received last year in terms of when we can present the information and have them go through that, so that date is based on that information. And we will be keeping in constant communication with the city on this date as well, just making sure we're on the same page throughout the process. That's it for the changes. Are there any specific questions?
I have two questions.
Sure.
Can we assume that as a result of the I guess there's time in there, the public engagement number 4, item 4, that still leaves room for adjustments before we see the final version on the 9th or on the 23rd?
Well, the fourth public engagement really is the point when we're giving the public the final version of the FSF model.
So we're
review.
giving them the final version, but it's not really the final version because it's an engagement session, so people can still express ideas, opinions, questions, alternatives.
I think that's within context, like within reason. They can give their feedback and their feelings on the model at that point, but the 3 engagement sessions that we've had to this point have been the majority of the feedback sessions. The version that they were presented with last week, or was it 2 weeks, last week, was fairly close to final, was one of the last remaining feedback sessions in terms of what do they think they should see here or what do they think should be changed, and those are the changes that are being incorporated
Okay.
currently.
I just want to be careful calling something engagement if it's telling somebody what the answer is. It's either I just want to make sure we're still engaging.
Understood.
So it's the earlier meeting in January with, that we're conducting where we're kind of relaying it, and then you have the board here, so you have a board presentation of it and then a board vote. So there is some opportunity for the, to get feedback, but, for them, again, as Courtney said, we have now had 2 engagement sessions with public and with principals about various versions of the model, and so those versions are less about engagement, they're more about relaying the final.
Okay. And that, once we get past, public engagement on the 11th, is the next time the public has a chance to say anything about the budget, I guess, is on the 13th of March, that public session?
No, actually. So the community budget engagement meetings will be held, I think we're doing them in quadrants, so we'll do them in 4 different locations. So the public will be engaged or have the opportunity to give their input on the budget development process, in addition to which they will have their individual SFC meetings, which the schools will be hosting. So this is,
Those community budget engagements, the 22nd to the 20th for the month, I think I misread that. Those aren't just on the individual school budgets.
no, those are right. The individual school budgets will be the SFC meetings.
I just read that wrong.
No, that's fine.
My fault, sorry.
So I know it's a challenge for us to sort of fix the plane as we fly it, and there's never a non-budgetary consideration sort of week
Right.
in the way the school system works. But one of the challenges that we've had recurring is recruiting and retaining faculty by having an early enough knowledge of budgets. So this sort of pushback, is this sort of thinking it's a 1 year while we look at fair student funding, and then we're going to try and get budgets done sooner next year, or how is this going to impact human capital?
I think our goal over the last few years has always been to try and move the budget process earlier as much as possible. I think over the last couple of years, we've had some difficulty because of last year dealing with the budget situation, and this year with the FSF model review. We don't anticipate, we never anticipate having to have some of these things take place, some of the surprises take place. But in the future, the goal would be next year to move that process up significantly if we're able to do so. And we're trying to put some things in place this year to streamline that process for next year. So some of the things that we're doing with the FSF model development, by taking a lot of heavy lift out of the way this year, should make it a little easier in the future years.
Also, some of the work we're doing about the September 30th enrollment adjustment would make that, right now, because we do, significant adjustment to a school's budgets at September 30th, that takes a lot of time on the finance team and ITD and human capital to reconfigure schools. And so we're working on ways to lessen the impact of that on schools, because it's very disruptive to schools, as well as a byproduct of that would be, if we did that, it would give the teams a little bit more time to move to the next budget season. But the other challenge I will say in terms of timing is that even if we don't do major budget adjustments as a result of September 30th is the official enrollment count that we need to know what that is in order to create budget projections for the following year. So, and that takes some time, even if you start right at September 30th, it takes some time to turn those into projections for the following year. So you can't really start the budget process until you have an idea of what the enrollment is for the next year, so you can calculate what the revenue is likely to be. So there are front-end obstacles that make it difficult to move it too early, but but next year, hopefully, we will not have the kind of obstacle we had this year with the revamp of Fair Student Funding, or the year prior with the budget gap.
Correct. Any other questions? All right. Thank you.
Good morning. Is it on? Okay. I'm Joanna P. Sunier. I'm our Green Schools Coordinator for City Schools. And I have a two-part presentation. One is a review of fiscal year 17 and the sustainability work. And then part two is about our sustainability plan moving forward. Just a quick reminder, this work has really grown out of the Baltimore City Sustainability Plan, which was passed in 2011. And one of their many, many goals was to turn every school in Baltimore City into a green school. And so we have been working for a number of years of really defining what that means, trying to figure out ways to support schools to become that, and the system as a whole. Flash forward to 2016, the board passed, you all passed a sustainability policy, and we have been working on implementing that over the past year. And also a reminder about what is a green and sustainable school system, or how we have come to define it. It's something that if we asked each of you how you defined it, you may have a different angle or take on it, and that's sort of one of the great things about it, but it's also one of the challenges. So we really, whether you're interested in physical health, whether you're interested in energy conservation, financial savings, whether you're interested in literacy, all of these things can come under a big tent of sustainability. And posted is a definition from one of the big organizations, the Center for Green Schools of the U.S. Green Building Council. The first part is now updates about the past fiscal year. Starting with environmental literacy, that is, of course, the reason that we are all here, is to educate our kids. So we've really been focusing on trying to have systemic experiences for our kids, and while we're continuing to support teachers in schools that are doing single projects, we're really trying to be focus on equity as much as possible, so that every child, regardless of where they're in school, gets the same environmental experience. So we've been able to embed experiences in 4th grade, 5th grade, 6th grade, and biology. I will say that the 6th grade piece is still in a pilot format with the National Aquarium. And I can later, if requested, I can go into detail about each of those projects, but essentially they're either training for teachers on providing a lesson to their kids or an experience of bringing the kids outside of school with a partner. We have many, many partners to implement the work. This is just a very small example of them or sample of them. So we have partners that are training teachers. We have partners that are coming to schools one time. We have partners that are coming to school multiple times over the course of a year. We have partners that are bringing kids to locations out off of their campus to experience different things. The photo is from the Sci Tech Lab, which is through Towson, where students go downtown by the Inner Harbor and experience to work in a real lab and do different tests there. We've also really tried to embed this work into the day-to-day operations of schools. So the sustainability policy, you may recall, asked every school to appoint a sustainability ambassador, and that person does need to complete a sustainability plan. And that's something we give them a template, help them think through what would it mean to practice a sustainable daily operations and environmental literacy. As you can see, out of our schools, we had a very high percentage of schools designate someone, a much lower percentage of schools actually complete that sustainability plan. This was in fiscal year 17. We're at about similar numbers for fiscal year 18, so I do need to put some thought into either helping better to explain that or provide more support to schools to complete that plan. We also were able to get the Green Leader Achievement Units in place, and that was really a way to try, how can we support teachers that are doing this? We have so many teachers that are coming in early, staying late, giving up planning periods to be leading things. How can we support them? And we're able to get the AUs in place, so we have teachers that now we're in the third year of that now. And then providing as much support as we can online and in person, either through visits, telephone, resources to connect schools to resources that they might need. Under the healthy school environment category, this is, I would say, the primary effort that I have been working on is our green cleaning. This is a state law that we've had where we need to convert all of our cleaning products to less toxic ones. So we've been working with facilities and with our charter schools and contract cleaning companies to change over their cleaning products. Helping now, we installed several hundred of the dispensers, trained custodians on site are now working on troubleshooting, figuring out when there are issues, how we can work through those. And then I know you've heard a lot from Food and Nutrition about the improvements that have been made to school meals, and also from some of the Alliance for Healthier Generation about some of the improvements to physical activity and health in schools. Reducing and conserving is the next category. We have just wanted to highlight a couple of pieces. We did do another energy competition. We had 22 schools participate. If all schools were able to save as much energy as those schools did during that 1 month period, we would be, we'd have a lot of savings. So trying to figure out how we can include those practices in a day-to-day basis in a wider format with more schools. Yes. I have, and I'm sorry I did not bring that with me. Raj, do you happen to remember that number off the top of your head? The savings from the 1 month. It was like an $8,000 savings for that 1 month, $9,000 for 1 month with 22 schools in February. So it was a winter month. But it's really all mostly to do with lighting because most of our heat is not electric.
Has there been given thought to incentivizing the schools by being able to share in the savings?
Yes, we have discussed that at length of figuring out how to sort of set an energy budget for a school, and then if they go below that or below what they used previously, the school would get some percentage of that. We have heard from other school districts, some that have had a great success with doing that briefly, and then once the incentive is gone, it doesn't work anymore because you can't sort of keep on giving people more and more savings. There's a certain point at which they go and you can't go any lower. We've also heard from some schools that it can then make a principal say to the, neighborhood basketball league, no, you can't use my gym on a Saturday because then I have to turn on all my lights. And that's antithetical to what we want as community schools. And then just the staff time needed to figure out what that budget would be, and then monitoring it and communicating it to principals. So thus far, we're not pursuing it, but we have considered it and could certainly consider it again in the future.
Excuse me, but we had the first 3 schools win the prizes, like $750.
It won't be captured on the tape if you don't.
Could introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Raj Bashubai, Energy Specialist from Facilities, and I oversees all the energy database for all the schools. So we, during the competitions, we did provided 3 prizes, $750, $500, and $250 for first 3 schools, and that was a good incentive. And this year also we are doing the same. Thank you.
For all schools or and how
All on those 22 schools.
I just wanted to also mention Raj's savings on correcting utility billing errors has been quite significant and continues to be a big focus because they're constantly changing utilities and bills and things. And then wanted to also mention that we were able to get a second grant for our net zero energy project at Hollibird. And so now there are 2 grants for both Graceland and Hollibird. And so both of those schools have been designed and will start construction soon, whereby as much energy is created from the rooftop solar will match the amount of energy used at the school over the course of a year. We have also done trainings with food nutrition staff, custodial staff, ground shop, repair shop on energy conservation practices. We have used a number of different BGE rebates to do LED retrofits and to change exterior lighting so that those go on and off automatically. So these are some of the highlights of the energy conservation efforts. Yes.
So it's a little bit of an interesting question, given most of our water is not potable in our buildings, but what are we looking at water conservation in schools?
We have not focused very much on water conservation. We have discussed putting some of the lower flow fixtures into some of the new buildings, and trying to, as part of the trainings that we're doing with custodial staff and others, is to quickly report when there are leaky faucets, running toilets and things like that. And some of our student groups that have gotten some of the green grants have focused on water conservation and have done, posters over sinks and education about steps that I can take personally to save water. And then Raj could speak also about the water bills themselves. No. Okay. Yes.
We have a question from
I
Michelle.
have a question, and I want to go back to 6, because I don't want to get too far down the line and we run out of time, so I want to get my question early. Firstly, as you already know, water is the biggest issue, the number 1 issue related to environmental issues. So that would be most important for us to get into that. But one thing that I want to mention, when I look at this chart, I'm looking at the list of partnerships that you have here, and as you probably know, one location or partner is missing. Majority of our students in Baltimore will attend Baltimore City Community College, and they have an outstanding environmental program at the school, and they're highly connected, and I'm really surprised we don't talk about that more. They're highly connected with University of Maryland Biopark, okay?
Okay.
And at yes, and they have grants, they have opportunities, and the students at Biopark who work very closely with students in the area, down at Poppleton area, in environmental science and sciences. And I think that we missed something when I don't see that Baltimore City, because our students attend Baltimore City Community College, and University of Maryland and Baltimore City Community College and Baltimore City Public Schools have a strong partnership together. And I was wondering why Baltimore City Community College is not a part of it. I see you have Towson and all the other programs, which are excellent programs.
So this is a very small list of the full list of partners, but I would very much appreciate an introduction to somebody if you have contacts there.
Dr. Feldman,
Okay,
the president, and the 801 West Baltimore Street, and they highly recognized, they've won a Bellwether Award for the work that they've done in sciences. So I think that we should look at that, that's critical.
I also want to clarify that the science office may have a relationship with them that has not been part of the Green Schools Network that I coordinate on the
Okay.
environmental side. So I can certainly check that with the science folks as
I
well.
think it would be helpful, so it's a good catch, there's probably different programs at the universities, including BCCC, but if you have any insights, I mean, you could share anything with AJ, and then he can then share it. But if you had any insights into, in BCCC, frequently the schools have sustainability offices, people working on these issues at the university. So it's, the partnerships here have tended to be with the, sustainability programs. That would be a tremendous contact if you,
Well, I
If
was
you-
the one that created the environmental science program, and I was the one that built the University of Maryland, so I'm the one that and I will give you all the necessary.
That would be wonderful.
contact. So, because, and I was impressed with the fact that you talk about, that when we talk about environmental issues, it's more than just, it's more than just health, it's economics, it's so many things that's involved, biological. So, those pieces is something that maybe we need to talk about. I'll be happy to talk to you about it.
Great.
And give you some names of people that you can go directly, and they will be happy to work with you in that community or any other community.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Our next category is schoolyard greening, and again, this is just a sample, but we are working to try and add greenery to our school campuses, and that has multiple benefits. That can be whether it's for student learning, getting kids outside to actually measure how tall the bean plants are growing and graphing that, or whether it be this is where a carrot comes from, or whether it be beautification and entering onto a campus and having greenery and beauty is very visually pleasing and emotionally helpful. And we have a number of different partners that are helping with that, as well as stormwater, water quality issues, and we're currently working with the City Department of Department of Public Works on trying to reduce the amount of rain that is coming off some of our schoolyards and going into the storm drain systems. Our community engagement piece is just a few things. I coordinate our Green Schools Network, which is a coalition of individuals both within and beyond the school district that are interested in schoolyard and all things green and sustainability of the school district. So I do a monthly newsletter highlighting opportunities, kudos, any and all things related to sustainability. We now have 32 schools that have a Green School certification from a statewide nonprofit organization that's been steadily growing over the past few years. And I have also been working with our engagement office on trying to embed some of the greening work into their events and activities and ways to pull parents into their schools to educate ways and things that their kids and families and schools can be doing, as well as a variety of community partners. We've had a big emphasis on student leadership over the past year, and really this is such a great entry point for kids, whether it's the kindergartner who is going around to collect recycling to the 8th grader that's leading a presentation to those kindergartens about how to do that, whether it is advocating for a styrofoam ban at the state level or the city level. We've had a lot of different opportunities for kids and trying to partner a lot with the city's Office of Sustainability, who has a paid internship program now and has really provided a lot of support to our students to get engaged. And the photo that you see is from a student leadership sustainability summit that was held at Silburn last winter, whereby mostly high school students spoke about how sustainability was something for them and what were entry points for them and work that they could help lead in their schools and communities. In the 21st Century Schools, we also have been, of course, working to embed sustainability. We have all schools by state law do need to meet the LEED Silver standard, and LEED is a green building standard. And so we have the first 2 schools that have opened. One was LEED Gold, one is LEED Silver, so Gold is one step higher. And then Waverly in the past year also received a LEED Gold certification. So those buildings all incorporate some green features to them, whether they be highly energy efficient or have recycled materials or good stormwater practices. There are a whole variety. It's a sort of an a la carte system whereby each architect and design team picks certain items in order to achieve a certain number of points to achieve that silver rating. There are a number of challenges to the work. Just highlighting several of them here. I think the primary ones are really, there is not consensus on the value of this work. I would say, most people agree that this is important and helps us in many, many ways. But due to many of the other challenges, it just can't rise to the top for many people, given the number of other challenges on their plate. Or a feeling of, I don't really see that as important to me in my life or my work at this moment. And so trying to figure out how we can really embed the work more and more so that it's not something that is a lot more work or a lot more time on people who are already stretched is one of the prime goals of my work. But there are times when it is more work or it is more money, and therefore we're not always able to do the full, what we would like to do or what would be best. And then we have challenges of staff time and budgetary constraints.
Question, Michelle?
Real quick, where are you receiving or getting your funding? Which grants, from where?
So my position is a grant-funded part-time position, and it is through the Baltimore Community Foundation. And the foundation has collected funds through Constellation, Krieger, Enterprise, individual donors, the foundation itself. And those funds go for my position and then for the green grants that we're able to offer schools, and also to a staff person at the Office of Sustainability for the city who supports the grants and the student leadership. And then we've also been able to get several Chesapeake Bay Trust grants to help train our staff. So most of those, or several of those environmental literacy projects are funded through the Chesapeake Bay Trust. We've also, like the aquarium, they wrote a proposal to NOAA, so we got that 6th grade project is funded through NOAA. So those are the primary ones.
Because I was going to encourage you to check out all the universities. You already connected with Towson and all the universities because they like to partner with you. They like to partner with Baltimore City, period. And it's a great opportunity. And what you'll find is that their science departments are anxious to partner with you because you give them the students. So, and they need that for the grants.
Right, so both Coppin and Morgan and Towson have provided students to help lead the 6th grade project at the aquarium. So they're in their teaching programs and they help to lead those programs there. So that's been one form of support that's been very helpful to us.
Morgan Center for Excellence in Science Education, Kevin Peters, Dr. Peters, but I'm just thinking not only, because Towson has quite a few different types of grants, they would love to partner with you, and any of the other schools, just one other thought.
Great,
Okay,
thank you.
you're welcome.
I want to move quickly to our sustainability plan. The policy is a very broad policy. It states how we have big goals to be a green, wonderful organization. The policy requires a more detailed plan, and so using the categories that I just gave the overview on for the past year, have worked with a number of different departments and partners to come up with much more specific goals and metrics for each of those categories. So I included a link to get to those. It's a large Excel file. I'm not going to go through each of those in detail. I wanted to just run through one as what the categories are and as an example. So if you have comments on this, I welcome them. This is something that we are going to essentially publish internally and have live on our website and will serve as the basis for future reports to you. So we have our broad goal. So that would be the proposed outcome or vision. I'm using in this example in the reduction in conservation category. a narrative which explains what the measurable performance outcome would be, in this case, lowering consumption of resources, where it ties into the blueprint for success. What is this strategy? So what is the action to achieve the goal? In this case, we're going to look at reducing solid waste. What is a metric? So how are those outcomes going to be measured? In this case, what is the number of schools that have a strong recycling program? And then what are the departments that are needed to make that a success? And that could be both internal or external. So in the case of the recycling, that's the City Department of Public Works, its principals, it's the sustainability ambassadors. And I also listed Johns Hopkins University because they have been, they're getting ready to give us another large donation of recycling bins that have been very helpful to us. So,
We have a question?
So, quick question, and this may not be for you to address, but might be to key it up for when we talk about procurement. So later on, we're going to talk about the compostable trays. That becomes an issue along with recycling about storage and maintenance and transport. So is that dovetailing into the sustainability plan, or is it purely a procurement question later for how we're going to manage composted trays? And actually
it's
get them
definitely a
composted rather than
joint
just
project.
add them to a landfill as well.
Right, so the first primary goal of the trays, which Monique can speak about, but is to get the styrofoam out of being burnt in the,
Yes. Which kudos to the 125 students who showed up for this committee
Right.
constantly asking for
so
that and for the work in nutrition
even
services.
if every single tray ends up in the trash, I think we have made some progress because those trays are now, the styrofoam is not being burned. However, we want to figure out how can we either recycle or compost these trays, and that is a ongoing project for us, and we will need to figure that out. We don't have a full plan for composting right now in place. Recycling is still very challenging for the majority of our schools, and so I have focused the majority of my effort in supporting schools on the recycling piece, particularly because it's also a state law, before I have focused on composting.
Yeah, and you can only eat the elephant one bite at a time, so totally understand that.
Right.
I just want to make sure that departments are interfacing on this one, because
Yes.
it will take more than nutrition services
Yes.
to make this happen.
So I just wanted to say, so I've met with the individual departments, got feedback from our Green Schools Network, have made presentations at our Wellness Council, the Maryland PTA and PCAB, and then in the early 2018, we will be writing up this plan formally, which will then serve, as I say, about the reporting going forward. Thank you very much.
So, great job on moving this forward. This is a lot of work.
Thank you.
And the question on composting and recycling, it mirrors where the city is too, trying to meet the state laws at the same time that we're trying to do a complete composting plan for the city. So I think we can,
And
As
safe
that-
rat abatement and all of the
yeah,
other
as that
things.
evolves, it's definitely something we can piggyback on, but unfortunately, one step
One
at
bite
a
at a
time.
time.
Yeah. Thanks, ladies.
Thank you.
'21st Century Schools team.
Uh-oh.
Is this your last meeting?
Beg your pardon?
Is this your last time coming before us?
This will be my last time coming before you.
We're serenading you.
Yeah. Thanks for everything.
Thank you for your support, and, it's been, I'm leaving here with having learned a lot, of course, and, having really a great initiative to have, that we've embarked on, and I hope that everything that I've brought to the district will be able to move forward, in a way that'll continue to help this program be successful. There will be another report next month to the board with the annual report. the annual report. Maryland Stadium Authority sort of manages that process. We like to bring it to you in December, but it won't be able to be here until January. They're still working on some things. But I'll give you some items that we're going to be talking about within the annual report. Give you a quick status of where we are with the Year 1 schools and the projects that are underway, our office transition, and some of the upcoming things in the next month. So Fort Worthington and Frederick, of course, have been delivered, but I've been talking a lot lately about how one of the things that will happen as we move forward is that we need to develop some type of post-occupancy program that allows the district to understand how the schools turned out from a physical standpoint, but also, of course, in the upcoming years, the district is going to be asked, has it helped achievement? Has there been a change to effectiveness because of the new environments? And so my recommendation is that we, try to develop some type of feedback program around post-occupancy assessments of furniture, of design elements, the physical facility, the durability of products. The team is collecting some of those things to move forward in the rest of the 21st century schools with MSA. Operations and maintenance, how are the schools holding up that we have put online? We already have feedback about that, and we're starting to collect some information that'll help, I think, undergird the specifications for the schools coming online, change some of the standards, because all of the things that we're doing in 21st century are going to be passed on into facilities and maintenance and operations to upgrade the standards for the district for the future. Furniture, equipment, and technology. We've done some very different things with 21st century than has been the practice in the current schools right now with their distributed budgets. So a lot of the study that's been done on furniture and the recommendations we've made with the portfolio of furniture, we're already passing them on to the current portfolio schools administration to use and pick from as they need to replace furniture or do things right now. So, and program effectiveness, which I spoke about already. As you know, we're doing a lot of really unique things with regard to culture and climate.
Can you speak up just a little bit?
Oh, sure.
I can't
Can you
hear.
not?
I can't hear myself think, and I definitely can't
Okay.
hear you talk.
All
My
right.
brain's just rattling right now.
So a lot of the efforts that Nicole Price and the transition team are incorporating with regard to culture and climate are definitely being incorporated into more of the schools. I think Dr. Sandelises already has Nicole going to some of the current schools to perform and to bring about some of the culture and climate programs that we're doing for 21st century. An outstanding item is recreation and parks. We do not yet have the recreation and parks programs operating at Fort Worthington and Frederick. The memorandum of understanding that we put together with them and the licensing agreement conflicted in terms of their policies and the board policies. And the city did not want to institute the programs which we find problematic, but we're trying to work through those efforts. Just in the last week, Recreation and Parks said that they will not permit to others the spaces that we have inside of the spaces that we have with 21st century agreements on. And so do away with that clause, so to speak. So we're working through that issue so that we can move forward and get Fort Worthington and Frederick up to speed on the recreation programs. Did you understand all that? I know it was a lot.
I'm trying. Martha has a question?
So just in the post-occupancy, I'm sure 100% you've thought about it, but since you're leaving, and you understand where the sort of warranties on the HVAC system, things like that. So having a series of post-occupancy punch lists for people to go back through and see, you know, are there any errors? Is there anything that 6 months from now we notice there's a small leak? Just so those things don't snowball, get out of control, and quickly bring about the downfall of buildings that really need to be a hallmark of this district for a long time.
So all of the physical systems have been input into the new comprehensive maintenance management system. So those have, all of the equipment's been put in, the preventive maintenance schedules have been established, and so those are being tracked, and we'll definitely have metrics on those. We, you know, as you know, we work very closely with facilities, operations, and maintenance, so that's been a partnership, and plus it's a requirement of the MOU.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
Yes,
And thank you for assembling such a great team to leave us with.
you're welcome. Lyndhurst and Dorothy I. Height. So those were supposed to be schools that were moved into over the winter. They were our first mid-year moves. Unfortunately, the construction didn't bear out. I mean, the schools still have not been delivered to us by Maryland Stadium Authority, and we really had to put them on notice that the school system was not going to bring the kids back, the teachers and the kids back, the first week of January if the schools were not 100% delivered to us on the construction side and if they were not approved by the city fire marshal for occupancy and use. Their schedule continues to show that the schools are going to physically be ready, but as of today, they are not only are they not ready, but no training has taken place and none of the systems have been commissioned. So we made the right choice, and in looking at when they were going to move, we worked with academics to determine whether it should be spring break or whether it should be next school year. Academics felt very confident that we'd have a separation from the testing schedule if we did it during spring break. And so we felt very confident that in terms of keeping, you know, say the buildings are all 100% ready 30 days from now, that was a short period of time to maintain security in the buildings. And then we'd also have time to do a lot of training with both the staff and with the students to familiarize and ready the school in preparation for spring break. So we've had quite a few communications and engagements with families. They were not happy. Staff was not happy. And unfortunately, people don't really understand when MMSA publishes a schedule and says we're going to be finished on a date, they don't realize that being finished with construction doesn't mean that the building is ready to be occupied. So we've been doing a lot of communication around making sure people understand that there's a difference. And we learned from Frederick and Fort Worthington, bringing the teachers in, allowing them to ready their classrooms, allowing them to become familiar with and be trained on instructional technology is absolutely crucial, and familiarization with the school, and of course training of staff for taking care of the school. So that change was made, and I think we're all very glad and relieved that we don't have to work over the Christmas holiday. But we're glad that we did it. Cherry Hill, Arundel, Robert Poole, Pimlico, and Forest Park will all be occupied this summer. One of the reasons why we told the Dorothy I. Height community that it was really be good to move the kids during spring break was so that those two schools didn't get mixed into the other 7 schools that have to move this summer, and they would lose a lot of the personal attention that they're going to get. Those 7 schools, well, I'm saying 7 because it's ACE and Independence going to Robert Poole. So all of those schools move in this summer. They finish construction. We do the readiness thing, and lots of activity all within July and August. And we also will be swinging the 4 schools at the bottom, Calvin Rodwell, John Rura, Baybrook, and Mary E. Rodman. Well, all of those schools will be moved into swing space this summer. So there's going to be a lot of activity going on with the teams. There's already been walks around the schools, the walking paths, the transportation planning. There's already been lots of meetings with parents and more to come, but all of the logistics are being worked on now. Patterson and Arlington, both of those schools will complete the construction documentation and the bidding out and begin construction this spring and summer. Okay. Patterson, Arlington, of course, will move, so Pimlico is moving out of Garrison and Arlington will move in. And then Fairmont Hartford, which the board approved the design build for last month, will begin construction in the fall, in the spring, actually. They'll begin some site work this spring.
Question?
So has Claremont been merged with Patterson then for name, or does Claremont not show on here? Or has
That
something
should say
changed?
Patterson and Claremont, you're right.
I
Sorry
was just
about
hoping
that.
maybe we merged both names and we had one school with two programs, so,
No, it should say that. It was a mistake on my part.
okay.
So this is the big status map, and it really just shows in the orange, those are the schools that are either going to be coming before you for EAPs or have in the last month. The last 4 schools are the ones that are truly still in feasibility study. The others are all in some form of enhanced approval package and completed feasibility study. The gray box are the schools that we've made a selection for the architect and engineer, but they haven't started yet. Their approvals are going through before the Board of Public Works. The schools in blue, of course, are in design, and the schools in green are in construction now. And so this is our general map. So this is a org chart I don't think you all have seen before, but this is the program's org chart. And the 4 gray boxes at the top are the 4 partners. The yellow boxes are the organizations, the executing organizations under the program, Maryland Stadium Authority and city schools. The groups at the bottom are all of the contractor staff that is contracted to MSA, and that is the City Schools Partners Group, and those are all of the contractors that support us. So this is the organization that's been built since I've been here. When I came, there was the 2 executives at the top of the Maryland Stadium Authority box and an administrative assistant, and there was my position and Larry. And so I just wanted to talk a little bit about the organization that on the city schools side as I'm leaving. So this depicts myself with Dawn Shirey, 21st Century Learning, dotted line, because half of her is paid for through the program and half of her is paid for under the CEO's office. To the right is no line connection, but that's Lynette Washington and the education planning group that's under Keith's, and which is a huge resource to us in the 21st Century office.
So Mignon,
Yes.
this is helpful. As I look at it, I really have 2 major questions.
Sure.
There's a lot of vacant positions. Is the money in place to pay for those positions?
Yes.
Is it a
So
recruit?
these are all funded by the program, and they've all been approved by Maryland Stadium Authority.
And they're vacant because
So they're
nobody-
vacant. So the Director of Strategy and Compliance position was Jessica Clark, who has moved to academics, and we've been recruiting for that position for a couple of months. We just haven't filled it yet. The positions under her, when we knew she was leaving, and, she had been the only person, honchoing all of that work, MSA and her and us got together and identified the positions that needed to support that area, given the volume of work coming up over the next 2 years. So the business manager, 21st Century associate, and program coordinator, all 3 of those will be selected by the time I leave. They've all been interviewed and selected,
So that-
actually.
Yep.
That's helpful.
Under the senior project manager, which is to the right of that, we've been trying to fill that slot since Larry Flynn left, actually. And both MSA and us have been looking for the right person. We think that we've come up with a solution for that, and we have actually made a recommended selection. So I'm very happy. Hopefully that position will also be starting before I leave. And then the two positions in the box under that one, which are it says project engineer, operations manager, those are basically inspectors. And right now, Michael McBride, the director of design, and Terry Guy, who's the technology manager, those two gentlemen are really the experts that we have in the field every single day. So we need this senior project manager, which is a construction person, and these two inspectors to act on behalf of the district or facilities management in watching over all of these construction sites every day and making sure that things are being done properly. So we're having a problem filling those particular slots, and we're continuing to work on that, and hopefully the senior PM will come in and be able to fill those slots soon.
What's the plan in the interim before we replace Mignon? Who's going to assume the responsibilities of your role?
So we're working on that right now. So we're going to put somebody in as interim. We're still working on who it's going to be exactly.
Okay.
So just wanted to give you a look at that so because most people don't realize that MSA has about 30 people. We have about 27 people, we have about 17 people, and then underneath the last horizontal row, the interior design staff, they both work for us. The project management staff, 2 of those project managers work full-time here at City Schools, and under communications and logistics, that entire staff works here at City Schools. Any other questions? Okay. So again, thank you all again for your professional, personal, your leadership and everything that's helped us get this, to have this happen.
Before you go, I just want to say publicly thank you for all the work you've done. I've always known you did a great job. I think I didn't realize quite how big your shoes were to fill until I started trying to find somebody to fill them, and I realized, what a huge undertaking it is to that you've done in terms of taking this program from really a nascent stage into being a full-fledged program that's really been doing an incredible amount of work in a very short period of time, really delivering high-quality schools for our students, really keeping in mind all the many facets of this, including robust and incredibly thoughtful and community engagement around these decisions, and then things like moving decisions through the contracting process, engaging with all the various many partners in this. It's a Herculean task that you've undertaken, getting systems in place to really get this moving, and I can't tell you how appreciative I am of you, and really do feel like I worry that I did not communicate that often enough while you were here, and so I want to make sure I communicate it while you're leaving, that it is a management lesson to me that I need to make sure that somebody who's as valuable as you are, that I'm communicating to regularly how much I appreciate the work that you've done. So thank you.
Well, thank you for the lessons I've learned from you too, Allison, so I appreciate it a lot. Thank you.
Andy?
And I just want to say, I think we might have started about the same time. How long have you been here?
3. I've been here 3 years
Okay,
this month.
before me. And I just want to say, did everything Allison said, but also it was obvious that not only did you produce great outcomes, but clearly your staff respected you, which is so important. You brought on a great team, which is important to recognize talent and support them, which you clearly have. And I also appreciate that you sweated the small stuff. I've been on the website a lot, and all the information is current, and that is so rare, particularly with a public entity, to go to a website and expect to see current information, because it just sends the right message that somebody cares, someone pays attention, not just in building buildings, but providing vital information to the public. So you've taught me a lot about management too, and how to produce great outcomes, so thanks, and we'll miss you.
Thank you, Andy.
Michelle?
I've already said thank you, but I want to say it again. It brings great joy to me to see an African-American, a black female, who's highly talented in science, technology, and I probably engineered everything that you could think of. And you make me proud. And I looked when I first met you, sitting out there, it brought me great joy when I joined the board. And thank you so much, and I really wish you all the best.
Thank you very much. I'll say one thing. I think that it was very visionary for the district, for the board, to trust and bring someone on who wasn't, strictly an architect, strictly an engineer, strictly a developer, strictly, you knew that there needed to be, this care that was taken for the district with this type of project. It's a little bit of an oddball. And, I've had my, all the way up until yesterday, continued question marks in some people's eyebrows when they wonder, what type of skill set is coming to the table and what type of skill set is within the project office. It takes a broader view than, narrow view to operate and to manage something like this. So I appreciate your support and really the courage and everything you've continued to give me as I move forward. So thank you. And I'm not going to disappear. I've already been asked a couple of times to come back and help with some things, which I'm absolutely wonderfully glad to do.
Martha?
Mhm.
Are you good?
I said my thank yous.
Yeah, I try to tell you every time I see you how much I appreciate you. So they've said it, and we're a better district because you were here, and I just think you're cool. Good luck.
Thanks.
Thanks. So, last but certainly not least, as the procurement, we don't need to talk about all of them. We'll focus on the ones for which there are questions. So, let's just see where we have. I know Michelle has questions on the taxi cab item.
I have questions on a GDO, so the Acme paper and a DCO.
You have Acme paper and a DCO?
I would just love them to talk more about what we're going to do in the interim with are we throwing in landfills?
On Acme paper?
Correct. And then a question on DCO.
All right, so we'll start with Acme paper. What's your question?
Morning, Ms. Parker.
Good morning.
Simply wondering, I as a parent would read this and say, great, we're going to have compostable trays, but the reality is we're not composting them yet, correct? Or are we going to try piloting composting? Are we working with any agri partners to do more reusing of organic waste? Can you just touch on that, please?
Monique Roll, Food Nutrition, Supervisor Procurement.
Just speak up.
Can you just bring the microphone closer to you?
Monique Roll, Supervisor Procurement, Food Nutrition Department. At this time, there's no long-term plan for the recycling compostable. We just wanted to make sure that the main focus is the removal of the foam out of the schools.
The what? I'm sorry.
Removal of the what?
Foam,
Foam.
styrofoam. out of
And
the
is that
schools.
one there? Could you show us?
Yes, so this would be the 5-compartment tray, round tray. It's part of our partnership with the Urban School Food Alliance. So they bid this product and you would be using it.
So comparing price for that over the foam, is it fairly comparable, a little bit more expensive?
Yes. Paper is always more expensive, but with the Alliance being the size that it is, it's a little bit cheaper than what you would find if we went on our own.
Thank you.
I think that while there's clearly things to figure out, some of us that have been working on the sustainability stuff in schools for a long time have been waiting for this day for a long time. And the kids have been organizing around it, so now we have the luxury now of shifting our focus to the next step.
Next step.
Exactly.
Thank you.
I don't have a question on the CompuData systems. I just want to say that, once again, there's another procurement item that sounds dramatically like some of the ones in the past, and until we get a map showing how all these things are connected, it's going to be really hard to understand. We've asked for it 3, 4, 5 times now. I know we're told it's coming, but I try to understand, but this data cabling and related services to ensure connectivity sounds a lot like, I know it's not the same, but it's, to the uninitiated, they do start to sound alike, and it really would help to have some kind of a map to show the various pieces in the contractors, and so I'll just state it again. And I'll say it again next month if we have another one.
If I recall, I believe IT's coming forward in January.
That would be great.
To provide an update.
And I'm unfortunately going to be out of town in January, so I'll make sure I read it and ask somebody to take good notes, because I'm really anxious to see that. I admit that it's my own lack of knowledge in IT systems, but these are large contracts, and I really just want to make sure that I'm able to clearly understand how all the pieces relate, and that we're not, period, how all the pieces relate. Any questions on oh, here we go. ADCO, how do you say that? ADCO? That's not how it's spelled.
So my question on the ADCO procurement item is, when we think about, from the 21st century presentation we just received, Parks and Rec is not yet up and running in the two new 21st century buildings. Does this database interface with Parks and Rec? Is it the same system? How are we working to make facilities usage as community accessible as possible while also protecting our spaces and our academic needs? I'd like to phone a friend.
Good morning.
So rare for you.
I'm Gregory Gamble. I'm the real estate agent with the Office of Real Estate and Permits. For your
Really
question-
quick, is that an in-house office?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Just with
Sorry.
Stadium Authority, there's a lot of,
Mr. Mayor, please bring your microphone closer to you.
Okay.
Thank you.
thanks.
Is that better? Okay. In terms of your question, our database is more advanced than the city. They're still using a spreadsheet where our database captures everything in terms of space and use. And we're also able to send out billing statements where the city spreadsheet can't.
Have you met with Parks and Rec at all to say, hey, we're going to this more advanced system, would you like to upgrade at the same time so that we can interface?
We've met with them, but they don't have any
They don't have any resources to do that.
desire to come on board with us.
And I asked this when I was speaking with Council President Young. He's very, very much in line with us trying to have a system that communicates well and readily and is very user-friendly. So I would suggest going back and chatting with them again.
Okay. Yes.
I think it's really important for us to have, this nailed down and have it be as up to the minute as possible.
I agree.
But if we're going to do community spaces and do them well, and we're going to encourage Parks and Recs to open and stay open in proximity to schools, I think it only makes sense to do it right from the start.
Any questions on the Graceland Park, O'Donnell Heights? You won't vote for what? All right, taxi cab.
I just need some explanation. I just got a little bit confused, just adding all the information that I have, and you can just clear that up for me. I know that we've had a decrease in the amount of enrollment of students in Baltimore City. And then, in addition to that, I see where I need for you to explain about, and Commissioner Hassan will probably ask this, about the decrease, the issue with the bus service. But I'm not clear. I see where you said you have a contract from 2014 to 2015. So we're in the third renewal of that contract. And I'm just not clear about why we need an increase of over $1 million.
John Land, Executive Director of Operations. So as you saw, we have a shortage of bus drivers,
Yeah.
and we have increasing in ridership. And so last year, at the start of, this year at the start of school, we were down 27 buses, and as December 4th, we're down 22 buses, because it's just difficult to find drivers. There are buses, it's just we don't have drivers. So we're shifting the ridership from, we'll have to shift the ridership to taxi cab because of the shortage of buses. I mean, we're at bus capacity. We are fitting students on buses where we can.
Students that you need for taxi cabs are students who generally would be on the bus. They're not students that have a disability, because they would originally be on the bus.
There are students that have, students with disabilities. There are students who are homeless. There are students that are.
Who would normally be on the bus?
Yeah, we would have more capacity for buses. Every year we put students on taxi cab.
Right.
And it grows every year. This year it's very acute because of the bus driver shortage. So some of those students would have been on cab, but a great deal of them would have been on bus if we had, if we had 22
So
more
we're
buses.
talking about students, we're not talking about students who are in school right now.
Yes. Yes, because the needs change throughout the school year, mostly with students who are homeless. With the winter, it comes at, it's harder for students to walk to school.
Right,
It's harder
right.
for parents to walk with their students to school. So there's growth in the homelessness. And,
I'm really clear about what you just said. I'm just having a problem understanding if we've had a decrease in enrollment, and now we need an increase in financial assistance for taxi cab service.
Well, that decrease in enrollment doesn't specifically apply 100% to the transportation needs. Some of it will affect us. For instance, and I brought up some statistics that actually John had gotten from transportation, that we do have 19 fewer special needs students this year, but we are, at this point this year compared to last year, we have 41 more homeless students. Last year we were just under 1,000. This year we're over 1,000, and those numbers will continue to grow as they have all year. I think we started with like 600 kids who were homeless. Now we're over 1,000. So once you've established your routes and you put as many students on them as possible, we have to put kids on cab. And those that are special needs that have, disabilities that it wouldn't be good to put them on cab or they're too young, then those we try to get on buses, if we get some additional ones. As John said, we somehow got 5 buses that we were able to put some students on. They get the special needs students get the first choice, but after that, the homeless, because the homeless 1 week, our routes are not static in that they're the same routes throughout the year. We have 30 to 50 changes every day from students who are moving, different reasons for homeless, additional homeless, and they're not on a route that we can use a bus, so we have to send a cab. So our numbers unfortunately increase because of the types of students who need transportation. And then we also have a category that wasn't very big. It's a category where students, they're in protective care. Something has happened in the house. The mother usually moves, and then we have to pick them up with a cab because they don't want them standing on bus stops or out in front of the house, so we send a cab to get them. And those numbers are increasing.
You generally spend a year? I mean, you hit 7 million and some for 1 year.
I think last year wasn't a number just over 6 million for CAB?
It was around 7 million.
7.
And with the decrease in drivers, if we sustain that, that 22 bus shortage, we anticipate that the costs are just going to taxi cab now, not to bus. So it won't be we don't anticipate $1 million overage. We think it'll be, a trade-off.
Okay, thank you.
Frank?
You may have just answered my question. Can you say that again? I was looking at something in your write-up. What did you say?
So with a decrease in drivers, we're down, right now, we're down 22 buses the same time last year.
Right.
So that would be, those are buses we're not paying for.
Yeah, I was going to ask, what percentage of the increase is attributed to the lack of drivers? How much of the 1.1 million is the result of that issue or that problem?
I think it's probably about 600,000, 500, 600,000.
What is the increase or the impact on the budget because there's a lack of drivers? How much over is the district paying to compensate for that loss of drivers?
I'm not sure about that because, I'm not sure is that, there's sort of been a persistent challenge every year getting drivers. So we have contractors who have buses, and if they could add drivers, we could add buses and decrease our cab ridership.
But does it increase the budget because of the lack of drivers? Or you don't know?
I'm not for certain. It seems like it would, at face value.
Right.
It seems like it would because we're adding students to cab. But on the other hand, too, if you put another student on a bus, the bus travels longer and further, and we have costs there. So it's not a one-for-one. It's a blend. I think it's more efficient to put the students on bus, but we have a limited capacity at which we can route a bus. So we sort of tap a bus out, even though there are seats available on it, as far as its ability to travel, within a reasonable time.
Just two more questions. You okay with it?
Yeah, my groan was just this vexing
Yeah.
problem.
So one of the...
These are great questions,
one-
it's hard to...
Yes.
One of the questions is, I ask this each time we're increasing costs, because I'm still not entirely clear how this works on the approved budget. So we're increasing costs by 1.1 million. It may be offset by some reduction elsewhere, and then there's a funding source that's identified here as student transportation general funds. So where are we taking this money from to pay for this added cost of lack of drivers? And are we taking it from a contingency, or are we moving it from a line item that doesn't need the current funding? How does that work?
Well, I'm not sure as far as a contingency, but if we have, in our transportation budget, which is about 37 million this year, if we have available dollars in that, throughout the year in different cost centers or objects, we will transfer that money to where we have overruns, which could be cab or the yellow bus contract.
So this transfer doesn't increase the budget that was approved? You're just taking it from line items that have capacity? Is that right?
Well, let me add that that's really a finance question. We go to them with our needs. Jacinta does meet with them to discuss where money can come from, but finance makes the determination.
In general, we've asked, Madam Chair, future Madam Chair, that when it comes to increasing a budget number, you can anticipate that this question will come. Where is the money coming from? Is it in the budget? If it's in the budget, what's being moved, just so we understand how money is moving around and what's not being funded? The last question I had was just a broader question about the huge impact of homelessness. And I'm just curious, when we calculate the cost of homelessness, we as a broader society, the city, state, federal government, the district, the amount of money we spend per child who's homeless is probably $5,000-6,000 a year, I'm assuming. And I wonder, for thinking in the future, not right now, whether that money could be seen as a savings to the extent that it can be applied to the homelessness problem, if we think about it collectively, where we all have a responsibility here and financial resources to deal with the problem. If we think about that $5,000 being spent somewhere else in the chain of reducing homelessness, maybe there would be a mutual benefit by multiple parties. Just a thought.
Well, I think there is a benefit if we're taking students to school. There's a long-term benefit that's.
Sure, but if that money could also be applied to housing, or to food, or to furniture, or to other things, getting somebody in housing, having a roof over the family's head, therefore reducing our costs by roughly $5,000 a year, which is a cost avoidance if we're all thinking about a collective responsibility or thought of how we could.
Social bond, you pay up
Yeah.
front, like if we know that.
Community impact bond. Or
If we, if we know that the cost of homelessness is $100 million, just to make up a number in Baltimore, and it would include this transportation cost, could we borrow up front to provide housing, knowing against the future savings? It's, because it's tragic that, it's tragic on so many levels, but, this is kind of a hidden, from the larger discussions of homelessness, this is just sort of a hidden, it's sort of, it's like such a large item in our budget. But what do you have to spend it. Martha, you have a
No,
question?
Michael, Andy asked my question.
Actually, when we were talking before the meeting, you did raise something, and I was curious about this when I learned about this from Allison last week when we were talking about it. This driver shortage, is there sort of a city, like in a city where we have a lot of high unemployment rate and people that want jobs, is there we always hear about job training programs that maybe align up with hospitals for the jobs in, the eds and the meds and the growing industries. I wasn't aware until I got involved here that we have such a shortage of bus drivers. That strikes me as a pretty good job. Now, Allison tells me that when you look at the compensation and the hours, it becomes a less desirable job. Are there other part-time positions that people hold in the school system where they could do something at one time of the day and drive a bus at another time of day? I mean, is this something that's going to come up in our transportation work group? Because this is a huge deal.
This is the kind of thing we're teeing up for the conversation with that task force, the transportation task force.
Great. It's almost a rhetorical question. It just is.
No, paraprofessionals make amazing bus drivers, because then they also have a relationship with the children at the school, they know, and it can help create a larger workforce that is more invested, sort of soup to nuts with the job, rather than coming in on an hourly punch in, punch out.
Just like a different form of job sharing, just a person who's got a part-time on this side of the ledger and a part-time. We don't want to oversimplify this problem, but this screams for something creative because of the job implications. So, anyway.
Can I ask a quick question?
Sure.
The time is involved.
Sure.
I'm not the best person in balancing my own bank book, so I have to say that real quick. It's really important, and you might have already answered this question. I'm not sure about the fact that you have a loss of buses and also drivers, and how much, and I think, did he answer this? How much money does that entail? And when we look at asking for an extra $1 million, I'm not sure do you have an idea how much we saved on not having those buses and not having those drivers?
So those buses, it depends on how a bus runs on its cost, but on average, it's probably about anywhere from $1 million to $2 million, those 22 buses.
That we saved by not having.
Yes.
And
again, it's on how those buses run, because we get charged by time and distance.
But I think that at some point, the finance office or someone should have an idea and let us know approximately how much that would be.
Okay,
Wouldn't you think so?
yes.
I think, well, Jacinta is off until tomorrow. She has always handled the budget for transportation, and she's very knowledgeable about that. But it is probably a trade-off, because you have to look at the $450 to $500 a day per bus, and then the time and the distance that the buses travel, so.
And real quick, the only reason why I ask that is because when I'm reading these documents, when those questions come, I think that it should be there, and it would take away any questions that we might have when we come to, the session.
Mhm.
You know what I'm saying? It can eliminate
Okay.
questions, because it's kind of a common question that anyone would ask. It's not a difficult question.
So we could add perhaps some FAQs, just in
Oh, yes,
case that,
definitely, because
and answer them.
that's, if you say you have a shortage of buses and a shortage of drivers, the question pops up right away, how much money did we save by not having these buses and drivers?
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks a lot. These transportation questions, they're obviously going to keep coming because it's such a complex problem, and we appreciate and we're glad that the district is going to be convening a task force to get some, yet again, some outside eyes on this. So thanks a lot.
Okay, thank you.
Anything else for the good of the whole? Thanks, everybody.
11:35.
Happy holidays. We are adjourned.
11:30.